Hi there students, welcome back to another video lesson. So we are now done discussing quartiles of ungrouped data. So using the two methods, yung Mendenhall and Sincich method and linear interpolation method. So after quartiles, our next discussion will focus on deciles of ungrouped data. So ganun pa rin po, gagamitin pa rin po natin yung two methods na yon. So yung quartiles of ungrouped data, so separate po yung video lesson. So for this video lesson, so isang video lesson na lang po using the two methods as well as yung percentiles para tuloy-tuloy po. So let's start. So for our lesson objective, we will calculate specified measure of position of the data. So kagaya po ng objective natin dun sa quartiles, ganun pa rin po dito. So we will be discussing on how to determine deciles of ungrouped data using the Mendenhall and Sincich method and linear interpolation method. So let us begin with defining what is a decile. So anong pinagkaiba ng decile sa quartile? Okay, so when we say deciles, these are the 9 scores which divides the data into 10 equal parts. So doon pala makikita mo na ang pagkakaiba ng deciles and quartiles. So kapag quartiles, it divides the data into 4 equal parts, and then there are only 3 scores that divides the data when in terms of quartiles. In deciles, there are 9 scores. So and then we have the root word for deci. Ayan, deci means 10. Like for example, decade. Decade is equivalent to 10 years. So decagon is a polygon with 10 sides. So let's have its illustration. Okay, so yung data natin, hinahati siya into 10 equal parts. And then, yung mga location ng ating mga scores na yan, ayan, D sub 1, D sub 2, D sub 3, D sub 4, D sub 5, D sub 6, D sub 7, D sub 8, and D sub 9. Okay, so dito naman, ang equivalent ng bawat position na yan is 10%. For example, D sub 1, that is 10%. D sub 6, that is 60%. And then, we have here D sub 5. So, yung D sub 5 po, siya po ang nagsisilbing median. Okay, so the middle value. So, kung ang quartiles, meron siyang quartile 2, yung middle quartile. So, sa deciles naman, D sub 5 or the fifth decile is equivalent to the middlemost value. So, therefore, we can say that D sub 5 is equal to quartile 2. Pareho lang po yan ng value. Now, using the same method, which is Mendenhall and Sincich method, so ipapakita natin kung anong formula naman para ma-allocate ang position ng mga decile values. So, ayan. So, D sub 1 up to D sub 4, yan po yung nasa left side ng D sub 5, yung ating median. And then, nasa right side naman, ito naman yung D sub 6, D sub 7, D sub 8, and D sub 9. So, yung formula to locate the position of each decile value, okay, so ayan, D sub k is equal to k over 10 times the quantity of n plus 1. Okay, so yung k po dyan, ito po yung position na hinahanap natin. Like for example, D sub 1. Ayan, D sub 2, 3, 4, up to 9. So, yung value ng k, 1, 2, 3, up to 9 lang po siya. Ayan, and then, why 10? Okay, kasi nga deciles. Kaya 10. Pag quartiles, 4. So, and then, we have there the quantity of n plus 1. So, n, still, number of observations po yan. Total. Total frequency. And then, applied pa rin po dito yung rule natin sa quartiles. Wherein, kapag yung nasa left side na mas mababa, below the fifth decile, so, round up tayo. Okay. And then, kapag naman yung nasa right side ng D sub 5, round down tayo. Okay, like for example, kung nakuha nating value for d sub 3 is equal to, halimbawa, 8.6. Ayan. So, i-round up natin yan, magiging 9. So, kukunin natin yung 9th data. Yun yung magiging value ng decile 3. Pero, kapag d sub 9, ang nakuha natin, halimbawa, 12.7. Okay, so 12.7 will become 12 lang. Kasi, magra-round down tayo. So, I hope it's clear. So, kagaya lang din naman ng quartiles yan. Basta, nasa left side ng median, round up. Nasa right side ng median, round down. So, let us have example number 1. So, we have here the scores of 15 students of grade 10 FATE in a 50-item summative test. So, find the first decile and the sixth decile. So, kung mapapansin nyo kanina, yung mga values for decile, siyam sila. So, hindi naman natin kailangan ipakita lahat. So, kukuha lang tayo ng at least 2. Kasi, pare-pareho lang naman ang process. So, nagkakaiba lang talaga dun sa K, yung value ng K. Kasi, iba-iba yung position na kinukuha natin. So, dito, we will use K is equal to 1 and 6. So, ito po yung mga scores. Ayan. So, you can see, yan, 15 students. Yan po yung scores ng 15 students in a 50-item summative test. So, you still remember, the first step in measures of position, so upon group data, we usually arrange the scores in ascending order. So, applied pa rin naman po tong arrange the scores in ascending order kapag group data na. Okay, so, ayan. Kailangan kasi nating i-arrange yung mga scores, yung mga data in ascending order para makuha natin yung accurate na value na hinahanap natin. So, i-arrange natin yan in ascending order. It means pataas. So, mag-iumpisa tayo sa pinakamababa, of course, and that is 6. After 6, we have 11, 14, 19. Next naman, line up 2 tayo. We have 20, 23, 25, and 28. So, 20, 23, 25, and 28. And then line up 3 naman, so we have 32, 35, and then 36. And then for line of 4, we have 41, 44, and 47. So 41, 44, and 47. And 50, yung last natin. So there you have it. Naka-arrange na yung mga scores natin in ascending order. So the lowest score is 6. And then the highest score or the perfect score is 50. And then, yung value ng n natin dito, huwag natin kakalimutan, is the number of students, which is 15. So, ayan po yung mga scores na in-arrange natin in ascending order. Now, for letter B, calculate the position and the value of d sub 1. So, since tapos na po natin i-arrange yung mga scores in ascending order, pwede na po natin i-solve yung position and then yung value ng d sub 1. So, kailangan mauna muna po yung pag-calculate ng position. Okay, bago makuha yung value ng d sub 1. So, yung formula natin, so, d sub k is equal to k over 10 times the quantity of n plus 1. And then we're looking for the value of d sub 1, di ba? The position at d sub 1. So that is d sub 1 is equal to 1 over 10 times the quantity of 15 plus 1. Then i-add lang po natin yung 15 tsaka 1, and that is 16. Next, d sub 1 is equal to 110 times 16, that is 16 over 10. Okay. And then, i-divide natin yung 16 sa 10. Ang value niya is 1.6. So, since i-round up natin siya, magiging 2. So, we're looking for the second score, the second data. Yun po yung value ng D sub 1. So, based from this scores, yung second value natin is yung 11. So, therefore, D sub 1 is equal to 11. So, yan po yung value ng D sub 1. So, if we are to interpret the value of D sub 1, ganito siya. 10% of the student scores is less than or equal to 11. So, meron kasi tayong learning competencies na interpret the measures of position. So, kailangan muna nating isolve, makuha yung value ng kung ano mang measure of position ang hinahanap natin bago tayo mag-interpret. So, since D sub 1, kaya 10%. And then, yung kabaligtaran ng 10%, that is 90% naman. And then, that is 90% of the student scores is greater than or equal to 11. So, imbis na less than, gagamitin natin is greater than. Next, calculate the position and the value of D sub 6. Daw sa 6 decile naman po tayo. So, again, the formula, so, wag sana tayong malilito sa mga denominator na ginagamit natin. For quartile, it's 4. For decile, it's 10. And then kapag percentile, kahit hindi ko pa na i-discuss, that is 100. So, we're looking for D sub 6. So, that will become 6 over 10 times the quantity of 15 plus 1. 6 over 10 times 15 plus 1, that is 16. So, D sub 6 is equal to 6 times 16, that is 96, over 10. So, 96 divided by 10, that is 9.6. So, since nasa right side siya ng D sub 5, yung ating median, round down po siya. So, 9.6 will become 9. Okay, so we're looking for the 9th position. That will be the value of D sub 6. So, magbibilang tayo dito. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, yan po yung pang 9th na score, which is 32. Therefore, the value of D sub 6 is 32. So, how are we going to interpret the result? So, that is 60% of the student scores is less than or equal to 32. Okay. Ayan po siya. Pwede rin namang 60% of the student scores in a 50-item summative test is less than or equal to 32. So let us define again what is a linear interpolation. So the simplest method of getting the values at positions in between 2 points is called the linear interpolation. So keep in mind na kapag ginagamit natin ang linear interpolation, we are determining the exact position and the exact value. Okay, so kasi kapag yung isang method ang ginagamit natin doon, usually estimation lang yun. Okay, so meron tayong round up doon tsaka round down. So dito kasi hindi tayo nagra-round up, hindi rin tayo nagra-round down. It's because we're looking for the exact position, exact location, the exact value. So here are the steps. So bago natin gamitin yung linear interpolation, kailangan muna nating i-arrange yung mga scores in ascending order. So, ayan, matik na po yan. So, always, the first step is to arrange the scores, the data in ascending order. Kapag hindi natin in-arrange yung mga scores, yung mga data, yung mga age, yung mga weight, temperature, kung ano man ang ginagamit nating data, so, magiging mali na po yung value na hinahanap natin. Next, locate the position of the score in the distribution. Okay, so after nating ma-arrange yung mga scores, yung mga data in ascending order, that is the time to locate the position of the score in the distribution. So, gagamitin po natin dyan yung formula for Mendenhall And Sincich method. And then, next, if the resulting position have decimals, proceed to interpolation. So, meron po siyang condition dyan. Dapat, yung resulting position natin, meron siyang decimals. Tsaka lang po natin pwedeng gamitin yung interpolation method. Okay, kasi kapag ang nakuha nating position, yung value, position, nung halimbawa, decile 1 is exact. Wala siyang decimal. So, we don't need to use linear interpolation. Like for example, kung nakuha nating value for decile 4, halimbawa, is 7.3. Okay, so 7.3. So, ayan, as you can see, meron siyang decimals. That is the time na pwede natin gamitin yung interpolation method. But, if the value of d sub 4 is 7, ayan, wala po siyang decimal. Exacto siya. We don't need to use the linear interpolation method. It's because we will only look for the 7th data. That will be the value of decile 4. So next, here are the steps of linear interpolation. So kung paaning process natin yung steps natin dun sa quartiles using linear interpolation, ganun din po dito. Okay, so yung una natin, get the difference between the two values where d sub k is located. Okay, so hindi na siya q sub k, d sub k na siya. It's because deciles. So kailangan po nating pag-subtract yung dalawang values na kung saan located yung d sub k. So yung kanina, yung d sub 4 natin is 7.3, di ba? 7.3rd position. Okay, so ang 7.3 ay nasa gitna po siya ng 7th and 8th data. Okay, ibig sabihin kung ano yung 7th data and 8th data, kukunin natin yung difference doon. Next, multiply the difference obtained in step 1 by the decimal part of d sub k. Okay, so halimbawa sinubtract natin yung 7th and 8th data. May nakuha tayong difference. So, yung difference na yun, mamultiply po natin doon sa decimal part ng position ng d sub k. Okay, halimbawa dito, 7.3. So, yung decimal part natin dito is 0.3. Ayan. So, yung d po dyan is yung difference. Kasi pinag-subtract natin yung 7th and 8th data. Okay, so yung 7th data po ang isa-subtract natin sa 8. Hindi yung 8 ang isa-subtract natin sa 7. Okay, so t times 0.3, makakakuha tayo ng product. Okay, so halimbawa p. Yan. So, hindi po yan talaga, kinagamit ko lang po yung letters para mas maintindihan nyo. Next, add the result in step 2 to the second or smaller number. So, yung nakuha nating result, yan, stands for p. I-add natin dun sa 7th data. Ito po kasi smaller number. So, ayan. 7 plus p or p plus 7. Ayan. Tsaka lang po natin makukuha yung value ng d sub 4. Yung exacto. The exact value and the exact position. So, para mas maintindihan nyo yung steps ng linear interpolation, so, let's proceed to example number 1. So, the recorded temperature in degrees Celsius of John's room for the past 10 days are as follows. So, ayan. So, yan po yung mga room temperature na nai-record for the past 10 days sa room ni John. So, the first step is to arrange the scores in ascending order. So, dito naman, ang hinahanap natin is yung D sub 2 and D sub 9 o yung second decile and the ninth decile. So, arrange the scores in ascending order. So, yung pinaka maliit, pinakamababang value, pinakamababang temperature is 16. Next, 17, 18, 19, 20. Next, 21, 22, 22, 23. So, twice po nag-appear yung 22. Ayan. So, na-arrange na po natin yung mga scores in ascending order. So, n is equal to 10. So, ayan. Where n is equal to 10 kasi past 10 days. Yun yung mga temperature dun sa room ni John for the past 10 days. So, for number 2, let us locate the position of D sub 2. So, using the formula, D sub k is equal to k over 10 times the quantity of n plus 1. Okay, yan po yung ginamit nating formula dun sa first method natin. So, D sub 2 is equal to the value of k, which is 2, over 10 times the value of n, which is 10, plus 1, that is 11. So, D sub 2 is equal to 2 over 10 times 11. Next, we will multiply 2 by 11, that is 22, over 10. So, 22 divided by 10, that is 2.2. So, 2.2, this will be the exact position of D sub 2, the value of D sub 2. And 2.2 is between the second and third data. Okay, so nasa pagitan po siya ng second and third. So, doon natin makikita yung exact position ng D sub 2. Now, subtract the second data from the third data. Okay, so yung exact position ng D sub 2 ay 2.2. Nasa pagitan po yun ng second and third. So, based from the given data, yung value ng second and third data are 16 and 17 respectively. So, pagsusubtract natin yon. So, isusubtract natin yung second data, which is 16, sa third data, which is 17. So, that is 17 minus 16 equals 1. Okay. Next, multiply the result in step 3 by the decimal part obtained in the second step. Okay, so by the way, so dito po sa paggamit ng linear interpolation, make sure dun pa lang po sa first step ay tama na po yung score o yung tama na po yung sagot na na-obtain. It's because kapag mali po yung first step natin, mali na po agad yung mga kasunod na steps. Okay, next. Multiply the result in step 3 by the decimal part obtained in the second step. Okay, yung position ng D sub 2. So, yung result natin sa step 3 is 1. Okay. Mumultiply natin dun sa decimal part ng position ng D sub 2. So, in 2.2, ayan, yung decimal part po niya is 0.2. So, magiging 1 times 0.2 siya niyan. So, 1 times 0.2 is 0.2. Okay, so yun po yung sagot natin for step 4. Next, add the result in step 4 to the second or smaller number. So, magbe-base tayo ngayon sa second and third number. So, 16 and 17. So, alin dyan yung pangalawa? Okay, yung smaller number. And that is 16. So, ngayon, yung 16 i-add natin doon yung nakuha nating sagot doon sa step 4, which is 0.2. So 16 plus 0.2, that is 16.2. Therefore, d sub 2 is equal to 16.2. So, yan po yung exact value ng ating d sub 2. Okay, so, paano natin yan i-interpret? 20% of the recorded temperature is less than or equal to 16.2 degrees Celsius. So, lalagyan natin siya ng unit. It's because temperature naman yan. Next, locate the position of d sub 9. Okay, so d sub 9 naman tayo. So, d sub k is equal to k over 10 times the quantity of n plus 1. So, k, that is 9 over 10 times n plus 1. So, 9 over 10 times 10 plus 1, 11. Next, 9 times 11 is 99. Di-divide natin ngayon yung 99 sa 10. And that is 9.9. So, yung exact position ng d sub 9 is 9.9. Nasa pagitan po yan ng 9th and 10th data. So, next, subtract 9th data from the 10th data. Okay, so yung exact position kasi ng d sub 9 is 9.9, diba? So, nasa pagitan po yun ng 9th and 10th data. So, yung 9th and 10th data natin are 22 and 23. So, isa-subtract natin silang dalawa. So, 23 minus 22, that is equal to 1. Next, multiply the result in step 3 by the decimal part obtained in the second step. Yung position ng d sub 9. So, yung result na nakuha natin sa step 3 is 1. I-multiply natin sa decimal part ng position ng d sub 9. So, 9.9, ayan. Yung decimal part niya is 0.9. So, 1 times 0.9 is equal to 0.9. So, next, add the result in step 4 to the second or smaller number. Okay. So, yung mababa dun sa dalawang number natin, 22 and 23 is 22. So, 22 plus, yung nakuha natin sa step 4, 0.9. That is equal to 22.9. Okay. Therefore, the value for d sub 9 is equal to 22.9. So, this is the exact value for d sub 9. Now, how are we going to interpret the value of d sub 9? So, that is 90% of the recorded temperature is less than or equal to 22.9 degrees Celsius. So we are now done discussing the deciles of ungrouped data using the two methods. For the next video lesson, ito na po yung last na type for measures of position, which is percentiles. So ayan. Ganun pa rin naman yung cycle natin. Una nating i-discuss kung paano ang paggamit ng Mendenhall and Sincich method, and then linear interpolation method. So, tandaan, pag Mendenhall ang ginagamit natin, usually ano lang yun, ini-estimate lang natin yung value, kung ano man yung kinukuha natin for measures of position. Pero kapag linear interpolation method na ang ginagamit natin, exact position na po, exact value na ang kanyang ibinibigay. So I hope naging clear sa inyo yung ating discussion for this video lesson. So that's all. Thank you.